Coming up on Global Business, strengthening ties. Chinese President Xi Jinping holds talks with his Namibian counterpart, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. The visiting leader addresses the China-Namibia Trade and Investment Conference in Beijing. Resilient demand. The International Energy Agency says a recovery in global oil demand is underway despite ongoing fears of disruption due to conflicts in the Middle East. And tourism boost. China sees record cross-border passenger trips in the first half of this year, with foreign arrivals surging more than 20% thanks to expanded visa-free policy. Welcome to Global Business. You're watching CGTN. I'm Lincoln Humphreys. Our top story, Chinese President Xi Jinping has held a welcome ceremony for Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah in Beijing.
The ceremony was held at the Great Hall of the People. A 21-gun salute was fired in the Namibian president's honour at Tiananmen Square. The two leaders were accompanied by their spouses at the welcome ceremony. Senior officials from Namibia and China also attended. The military band played the two countries' national anthems. President Xi Jinping accompanied President Nandi-Ndaitwah to inspect the People's Liberation Army Guards of Honor. The two leaders then watched the Honor Guards formations. The Namibian president began her week-long state visit to China on July 5th in the southern province of Guangdong, before proceeding to Sichuan province.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with his Namibian counterpart Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah in Beijing. During the meeting, both sides announced the elevation of bilateral ties to a China-Namibia community with a shared future in the new era. President Xi said China is ready to strengthen ideological exchanges and development strategy alignment with Namibia. On practical cooperation, Xi announced Namibia to make good use of the duty-free policies to bring more quality Namibian products into the Chinese markets. President Xi also called for deeper collaboration in infrastructure, energy, minerals, agriculture, education, youth and science and technology. President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah said Namibia attaches great importance to relations with China. She said Namibia hopes to learn from China's experience, strengthen solidarity, consolidate mutual trust and expand cooperation to push the two countries' comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership to greater heights. The two heads of state also attended a signing ceremony of cooperation documents. A China-Namibia Trade and Investment Conference has been held in Beijing. Visiting Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah attended Thursday's meeting and delivered a keynote speech. Our reporter Yo Yang has more.
Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah is accompanied by cabinet ministers and business leaders. She met with a number of representatives of the Chinese business community, such as Sinomime and the China-Africa Development Fund, when she came to address a China-Namibia Trade and Investment Conference.
This forum, Director of Ceremony, is not simply another business event. It represents an important opportunity to translate the long-standing friendship and political trust between Namibia and China into tangible economic outcomes that create jobs, stimulate investment, transfer skills, and improve the lives of our people.
Namibian ministers said the purpose of the event is to enhance partnerships and deepen cooperation in the fields such as energy, investment, and agriculture.
The most important thing is that we meet potential business people and business people already. Most of them are those in the mining sector, energy sector, but others are also in the agricultural sector. So our interest is to engage so that we form partnerships.
China and Namibia enjoy strong economic ties, and bilateral trade hit over $1.85 billion last year, up more than one-third year-on-year. And experts say the visit will also advance cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative and the outcomes of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation.
We are bilateral partners, but also within the context of the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation. What we are discussing is really the decision that were taken at that forum. So the visit is significant both in bilateral terms, but also in terms of China-Africa cooperation in the world.
In fact, Thursday marks the fifth day of President Nandi Ndaitwah's 7-day state visit to China, and Chinese leaders will also meet with her. The two sides are expected to engage in discussions of bilateral relations as well as the development of the global south. Yu Yang, CGTN, Beijing.
My colleague Vivian Nunes spoke with Namibia's Minister of International Relations and Trade. She said China's zero-tariff policy toward Africa is expected to boost the continent's industrialisation and bring benefits to multiple sectors.
I think I've already answered that by saying that the benefits of the gesture from China is going to generate industrialization. We are going to begin to add more value to what we are exporting to China. I think a lot of business people are going to be coming to China and see what are the needs. So tourism will also benefit and vice versa. In terms of transportation will benefit, services will benefit, people to people will benefit. So because we see trade as a peace-building measure also. We don't just want to trade. We also want to have a better understanding among people. So the whole collective will actually benefit from this gesture, and we hope that other countries can do the same.
Coming up next on Global Business. Resilient demand. The International Energy Agency says a recovery in world oil demand is underway, despite ongoing fears of disruption due to conflicts in the Middle East.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
The International Energy Agency said Friday that renewed tensions between the United States and Iran could upend forecasts for a global oil surplus later this year. In its monthly report, the IEA said global oil supply rose by 4.1 million barrels per day in June as flows through the Strait of Hormuz partially resumed. Output, however, remained at 9.4 million barrels per day, below pre-conflict levels. The agency revised its 2026 demand forecast to a decline of 1 million barrels per day from last year, slightly less than the 1.1 million drop previously expected. It expects global oil supply to fall by 3.7 million barrels per day this year, narrowing from a 3.9 million decline forecast earlier. A recovery in global oil demand is underway, the IEA said, but warned that escalating hostilities could disrupt efforts to rebuild inventories and delay the expected return to a supply surplus in 2027. Oil prices fell at the start of the week but recovered sharply later on. After a small drop on July 6, Brent crude climbed from around $68 to as high as $78 over the next 2 days, driven by rising tensions in the Middle East and a one-day gain of more than 5%. At the same time, the US Energy Information Administration lowered its price outlook in its July report, saying it expects global production and trade flows to return to near pre-conflict levels by the end of 2026. On Friday, WTI crude stabilised after falling overnight and is currently trading near $72 a barrel. This week, it is on track to break a 4-week losing streak. Looking ahead, the outlook for US-Iran negotiations remains the biggest unknown for oil prices. For some added insight on the global oil market and where prices are heading, I'd like to bring in Lin Bo-Tiang, head of the China Institute for Studies in Energy Policy at Xiamen University. Thank you very much for joining us. So the IEA now says a recovery in global oil demand is underway, with crude flows through the Strait of Hormuz gradually resuming, though hostilities have flared up again recently. How difficult is the near price outlook to forecast right now, and which flashpoints matter most in the coming weeks?
Well, in my view, that because of uncertainty of the Hormuz, any prediction at this moment, it doesn't make much sense. In the short run, for example, at this point, the best prediction is large fluctuations. Oil demand and supply largely depends on whether the Hormuz could be open very quickly, not the outputs. Because you can increase output, but you cannot pass through Hormuz, so you cannot increase the supply. And in the longer term, I think that the longer the Hormuz close, it will be bigger damage for the supply chain of the oil and gas. That's on the supply side. On the demand side, if it lasts longer, it will lead to economic recession. Oil demand will decline, and there's also another factor for oil substitution. So the oil in order, I think, is pretty difficult to predict at this moment. I think that the importing countries should prepare for the worst. In other words, in the worst situation, how can we ensure our energy supply security? Well, you can begin to look for the different sources, or you look for the substitutes. In the last few months, they already have substitutions. Some are temporary, some are permanent, like the electric vehicles. China electric vehicle penetration rate was 60% last month. Those are permanent. So therefore, fundamentally, is to adjust energy strategy to try to localize the energy supply. That I think that's the best way.
We've, of course, seen some wild swings in crude prices driven by supply disruptions, some shipping risks and policy surprises from both major producers and consumers. How do you read this latest bout of volatility, and what do you see as the main driver of price moves for the rest of this year?
Well, this war proved that, one, the Hormuz could be closed. Second is that it could be closed at low cost. So at this point, any small conflict could lead to the closing of the Hormuz again and again. In other words, the Hormuz cannot go back to what it was before. So instead of spending effort to predict the unpredictable, I think the best way is that to think about what we are going to happen next, what we are going to do next. The price is going to fluctuate, continue in a large fluctuation unless we can settle the Hormuz situation. So the importing countries should begin to think about how to localize the energy supply to the extent possible. China has proven that when solar energy storage and electric vehicle, they are economically and technically feasible. And wind and solar, every country has it. So let's take China as an example. If China has 1 million units of electric vehicles, it can reduce the import by about 20% at the current level. Then the Hormuz is only about 40% of China's import. In other words, if China could go through the increase in large number of electric vehicles, the Hormuz situation for China is going to be much less important. So the put together, I think that the different countries should begin to think about how to localize energy supply, utilize your wind and solar, and begin to think about how to cooperate with China and to go through the wind, solar, electric vehicle, and therefore that to ensure that energy security to a certain extent, instead of predicting that what's going to happen, because it's unpredictable.
Thank you very much, Lin Bo-Qiang. Appreciate your insight and expertise. He is head of the China Institute for Studies in Energy Policy at Xiamen University. Shipping blockages around the Strait of Hormuz are highlighting just how quickly trouble in one part of the world can reach farmers in Europe. One major concern is fertiliser. If prices go up, farmers are put under extreme pressure, adding to concern over fuel costs, bad weather and falling grain prices. Sarah Coates has more from southwest France.
In the fields of northeast France, the harvest is already underway. But for 64-year-old Jean-Francois Sauvage, the pressure on his farm is no longer just coming from the weather. After 40 years here, he knows every harvest comes with risk. But this season, global markets and the prices of fuel and fertiliser are all fluctuating at once, leaving farmers with big decisions to make.
3 or 4 years ago, wheat was selling for €250 per tonne and barley for 300. This morning, wheat is 180 per tonne. And on top of that, with this heatwave, we're going to lose some of the good crop.
For grain farmers, fertiliser can make or break a harvest, and its cost can change rapidly due to issues thousands of kilometres away.
So ammonia and urea, and especially urea, are significantly produced in the Middle East and then traded from there. About 30% of globally traded urea comes out of the Gulf. And because it's such a large and global market, any loss of supply like that impacts farmers across the world.
The concern now is what happens next. Even if the traffic through the vital shipping route, the Strait of Hormuz, returns to pre-war levels, the effects of its closure could be lasting.
You are seeing globally increased prices, and warehouses across the world will take that signal and raise their prices as well. And that's not because the stuff in warehouse is more expensive than it was the day before, but what they have to buy to replace it will be. So they need to keep up with market prices.
And while Europe doesn't source all of its fertiliser from the Gulf, the price farmers pay is shaped by global markets, meaning a disruption thousands of kilometres away can still be felt here on this farm. On farms like this, every decision about fertiliser matters. Use too little and yields can fall. Pay too much and farm margins can be squeezed. For Jean-Francois, the real pressure is the uncertainty. Every decision has to be made before he knows whether prices will rise or fall.
The price of nitrogen fertiliser has more than doubled, so these days you never know when you're going to sell or when you're going to buy, or whether you made the right decision or not.
For now, the harvest continues, but the decisions being made now are already about next season. What to plant, how much fertiliser to buy, and how much risk he's willing to take on. Sarah Coates, CGTN, France.
Still to come on Global Business. Tourism boost. China sees record cross-border passenger trips in the first half of this year, with foreign arrivals surging more than 20%, thanks largely to expanded visa-free policies.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business. Only on CGTN.
Turning now to China travel, where China saw a record 369 million cross-border passenger trips in the first half of 2026. That's up 10.8% year on year. The National Immigration Administration released the data on Thursday. Foreign arrivals rose 20.4% to around 23 million, with visa-free entry fueling that growth. Nearly 78% of all inbound foreign visitors entered China visa-free, marking a 30.6% surge from the previous year. The Republic of Korea, Russia and Malaysia were the top 3 source countries. Many tourists in China are going beyond sightseeing to explore the country's living cultural heritage. At a Beijing cultural hub, ancient traditions are colliding with futuristic technology. Our Wu Qiang has the story.
On the outskirts of Beijing, visitors from over 20 countries recently climbed the rugged Panlongshan Great Wall, soaking in panoramic views of Miyun Reservoir. But for many, the real highlight lies closer to the city center. Tucked inside a historical courtyard in Shanjing Hutong, the Beijing Intangible Cultural Heritage Experience Center is offering tourists a hands-on encounter with centuries-old crafts with a modern twist. The main draw, a mixed reality headset that transports users onto Beijing's central axis. They can walk from Yongdingmen Gate to the Drum Tower, read virtual blessings, release lanterns, and set off digital fireworks. Tea ceremonies and traditional incense making are also drawing crowds. Meanwhile, at the gift shop, classic Chinese snacks are winning over first-time tasters.
Mate, it's for more. This is sweet.
Yeah, we never tried it, but it's delicious.
The growing appetite for cultural experiences comes as China opens its doors wider to overseas visitors. Data from the Beijing General Station of Immigration Inspection shows passengers crossing at the capital port had already topped 10 million by mid-June this year. Nearly 1.26 million of those entries were made under visa-free or temporary entry permits. To cope with the rising numbers, border authorities have been adjusting checking points in real time, opening all lines during peak period, and cutting wait times.
For foreigners applying for the 240-hour visa-free transit policy, we've introduced a one-stop procedure that combines temporary entry permit issuance with inspection clearance. This has significantly sped up the process.
With more immersive experiences and smoother entry procedures, China's traditional culture is no longer just something to see, it's becoming a world to step into. Wu Qiang, CGTN, Beijing.
Meanwhile, to attract young travellers seeking deeper cultural experiences, Beijing recently rolled out tourism options that combine cutting-edge technology with rich cultural offerings.
Beijing has unveiled its first top 10 new scenarios for inbound tourism, blending trendy shopping, wellness, and high-tech industrial tours with the tech meets China chic appeal. More than 300 travel operators from over 40 countries have already sealed deals worth nearly 45 million yuan, both online and offline.
I think it's very changed the China. It's more easy, the entry and the buy connection is very, very easy. Now I buy this present for my family, for my office, and it's very easy. I pay with Weixin. Yes, very convenient.
At a recent event, 17 countries and 30 Chinese provinces showcased local specialties and innovations. Beijing's 798 Art District brought VR cinema experiences, while other regions offered intangible cultural heritage food and one-stop tax refund services.
Beijing has pioneered a citywide one-stop tax refund model, offering immediate refunds upon purchase and cross-regional mutual recognition. We also launched the country's first online duty-free refund store for overseas tourists. We have basically built a three-dimensional tax refund service system covering core business districts, key hotels, bank branches, and international exhibitions.
In the first 5 months, we received over 2.6 million inbound tourists, a year-on-year increase of over 35%, and tourism expenditure exceeded 25 billion yuan. Going forward, we will promote the development of new cultural tourism productivity through public service upgrades, industrial improvements, and market regulation, while advancing the application of technology in cultural tourism scenarios.
Shao Wei, CGTN, Beijing.
Now to Namibia's spectacular wildlife. Its vast desert landscapes and rich cultural heritage are attracting growing numbers of Chinese travellers. New official data shows China is now among the country's top 10 overseas tourism markets, with officials hoping to build on the growing interest.
Famous for having some of the highest sand dunes in the world, Namibia has for many years been a dream destination for travellers across the globe. But now, large waves of visitors are arriving from a different source. According to official data, nearly 10,000 Chinese tourists visited Namibia in 2025. Despite it being almost 1% of the total, it was enough to push China into Namibia's top 10 list of overseas tourists. Tour operators say the higher numbers are due to targeted promotional efforts.
We mainly market the Chinese market. And why the Chinese come to Namibia? Because we have the most attractive, the Namib Desert, and we have the Etosha National Park, and we also have the very beautiful Sandwich Harbor. The dunes meet the sea.
Many visitors say they are drawn to Namibia's unique cultural environment and the country's stunning and untouched landscape.
I chose to travel to Namibia because of the rich cultural environment and to see the only red clay tribe in the world, which is fascinating, including the many species of wildlife here, the elephants, giraffes, and fei-fei animals that I like very much.
The Namibia Tourism Board says that building strong ties with China is now a top priority. Officials say they are working together to create special travel packages aimed at making Chinese and other visitors feel right at home. With stronger partnerships now in place, Namibia expects even more Chinese travelers to arrive in the coming year. Daniel Arab Moy, CGTN.
That is all we have for this edition of Global Business View. I'm Lincoln Hopkins in Beijing. You've been wonderful company. We'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.